Good morning, welcome to a Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Thursday the 27th of October. So today we've got two really key elements coming out. We've got the Euro ECB rate decision and statement press conference coming out there at 1:45, so 1:15 and 1:45, and then in between that at 1:30 we've got the US advanced GDP. So some key data certainly there. Now, talking of obviously the ECB, I have a handy little old list here in terms of the potential. Now, this is an expectation of the best cases, whatever that is expected today, and this is largely built up by ING from their analysis. But it matches the expectation in terms of a 0.75% hike is matching most others. Now there is, we saw yesterday the Canadian data, they increased by 0.5% instead of the 0.75 expected. Now that was widely expected at 0.75. It didn't do a lot of damage to the Canadian dollar, I might add, at the time. It sort of it took it in its stride. So worst case scenario, and this is, I was sort of watching this euro this morning, won't be trading it this morning. Worst case scenario, we could only see it go, increased by 0.5%. Now we know what they're like at times. They get a bit dovish, and there is that risk. Of course, the 0.75 is already priced in, so we've got to consider that when we look at the price action. Often on the news we see selling coming on the news, or buying coming on news, and vice versa. So this may well see selling on the news at this point. Anything more hawkishness? Any more hawkishness? The key thing will be looking at the balance sheets and reduction, or balance sheet reduction, which is a huge balance sheet at the moment. But hinting that it's been discussed. Suggest it's a more hawkish approach there, and also downside risks. The outlook slightly abated since September, so it'll be interesting to see if they've said anything less. So I'll be surprised if we get the more hawkish side, and so will the market. I mean, the run-of-the-mill, the priced-in level is this 0.75. So and maybe even a comment on the increased availability of activating the TPI as well. So in other words, buying more. Right. Okay. That's the big risk. Looking then at the euro itself, and you can see we've literally I just map out when I see wave formations, just to see we often if we get 3 wave movements that we've seen here. This is certainly a third wave in the bigger scale of things. It's literally done a 1-to-1 at the moment. Yes, it's come into a 100 moving average, but it's of an area where it could be a bit softer. We'll see if traders get a bit more excited post 8 o'clock. It's selling off a little at the moment, but post 8 o'clock you never really know if we'll see a continuation. We've got the monthly pivot just above if it does. Anyway, for now, I'm looking at this and thinking maybe on the softer side at some stage. You can see on the weekly pivots into its R2 as well. Sorry, R3. Beg your pardon. The R2's back there. It's into its R3. So these are quite key resistance points. I'm just sort of coming down the time frames here. So 60 minutes on the euro, and today, well, it's already it's done this bit of a divergence across the top there. It's then put a lower high in, bit softish looking. Got the daily pivot below, which also could be a draw. So there are some draws to the downside. Of course, this may just be a little correction before it continues in its bigger direction for now, or intermediate direction. Okay, I mean, you've got to just keep coming back, looking at the weekly and thinking, well, yeah, it's broken a trend line there, but it's still below the weekly 21. I just remind myself that if you start getting a bit too bullish on it, although there was no reason not to be a bit bullish on it, it's particularly yesterday. Right, moving on then. Sorry, a bit of a long long chat on the euro, but it's important. We've got key news coming out. Okay, the pound, well, quite choppy, but it had managed to break the prior highs there yesterday, and well, it too is coming off. I haven't actually done the measure for it from this, but I can see that there would be quite a bit more to go here if you were measuring equal throws from this wave here and pop it on the bottom of the wave over here. There would be quite a way to go yet. So if the markets do spring around a little bit, well, there's some opportunities. As far as where they've come into resistance now, we've got the 4-hourly 500 resistance, the R2 weekly R2 sitting there, just providing at least some near-term resistance. And again, we've got this sort of on the shorter time frame here. We've got this lower high coming through, and daily pivot underneath. Same old story, really. Now, these sort of movements across this and the euro, of course, could just be seen as being, well, just a bit of a flaggy movement before they move up again. Well, we'll see, but I think there's a lot of risk coming into the market. Okay, the yen. Well, the yen managed to hold on this time a little bit more to the intervention move. If they deny it or agree with it, I don't know, but they denied it last Friday, but perhaps admitted to it later. But it certainly it's had a good third shove down there. So it's had the first shove down, second shove up, third back down, taking the lows out. But it too is just finding a bit of support off its weekly S1 there at the moment. But just looking at this again, it's got weekly pivots, the opposite side of the price action, the direction against it. This might give opportunities to sell back into if you are believing that this move is going to continue some more. If it gets there, but might not even get there. The 21 might just step in. It's quite a long way through. It's already gone through its S1, not far off from its S2. Might not have the legs to get back that far. Aussie dollar. So the Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar pushing up, or has been pushing up towards its monthly pivot. It hasn't quite got back there yet, but again, it's a similar picture here. Bit of a divergence. Actually, it hasn't given us a lower high. It's just in that sort of divergency move, but could well reverse around here. It's got a pivot swing at the top here, just looking a tad on the softer side. Okay, Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar, well, it was doing okay regardless of the, as I said, it did have a bit of a spike there, but managed to run back southbound. Since then, it's consolidating near its lows here. Would expect normally a continuation to the downside, but like the other markets, we might just see the dollar strength improve a little bit. We start seeing the euro selling, creating demand for the US dollar, and it might just sort of have a hint at pushing the others along with it. Again, it's got a bit of a pivot swing there, and well, potential to move up. It's already back above its daily pivot. So looking across at gold, and well, we're seeing this. Let's just go back to the dailies here. It did pretty well yesterday. I mean, it continued from the previous day there, and it's put a bit of a swing into the upside potentially there. But again, this morning at the moment, we're seeing this sort of selling coming off here. This could just be a bit of a flag, so we'll tread carefully on this move. But it again put a lower high in on this sort of retracement on the short term. Continued rollover here with the S1 would be in sight, and maybe even pushing further down. Still quite bearish looking at what's going on here. The bigger trend of the money at the moment is to the downside. Okay, and oil. Well, oil hadn't moved much yesterday. Up until yesterday, I should say, it Did get a kicker in the afternoon, like everything else. Softer US dollar ends up with often a move in the commodity prices, and we've seen that in the afternoon, in particularly there, shoving up beyond this sort of key area where we'd seen resistance sitting there around about the $86 mark, but it's pushed back up above that for now at least. Could it go further? Of course. Just looking at what it's doing here, heading back towards its daily pivot at the moment. It'd be worth watching to see how it reacts to the daily pivot. If we can get a bit of a bounce, we see demand coming back in, then we could. It might be worth trading it to the upside. Okay, there's the majors. Let's have a look at just switching markets here. Oops, wrong one. Just having a quick look at the other markets. Let's just go from the indices to the crypto briefly. So Bitcoin continued on the softer US dollar. Whether the demand was a lot greater, but certainly the Bitcoin itself benefited from the move yesterday, off a little bit as other currencies are. Just looking at Ethereum here, similar picture. It's had a good old couple of days there. It's whether it can consolidate this and maybe push on and build further. Certainly looking one of the more bullish ones. Ripple still quite disappointing, depending subject to your full thoughts on that, but gradually getting up there, but the sort of lower movements. And yesterday Cardano, it consolidated as much as anything else. Not really much of an upward push. It's quite it's up a bit at the moment. Anyway, largely to be expected. A lot of these moves with the as I say, softer dollar. If the dollar strengthens a bit today, it'd be interesting to see how these move. The indices. So indices sold off, and again today we've seen the CSI 300 selling back again. So it just continues in this very weak situation at the moment for CSI. And Nikkei also down, filling a bit of the gap that was left yesterday. Almost filled it there, but it's still. It's put the higher lows in. It's still in that sort of zone. Nifty 50 pushed up and closed down, but still higher for the day. It closed higher than the previous day there so far. Of course, it's still running at the moment. S&Ps. Doji bar yesterday. Is this the end of this sort of retrace up? Or possibly not. We may still have some further upside, but we're seeing across a lot of these markets. In fact, I'm tempted to draw a bit of just looking at where we are on the fibs here. So it's beyond its 786 actually. It really has on that part of the movement. Let's just measure the bigger wave structure before someone shouts at me we're putting that in the wrong place. And 618, so it's pretty much into its 618 at the moment. That doesn't mean to say it will stop there, by the way. It's just that's as far as it goes. Some sellers will come in. It's 50%, 61.8%, trying to sell these markets at the moment, though they are pushing to the upside there, so just be aware. And Nasdaq is really the sad cousin really at the moment. It's just not getting anywhere. It ended up closing down yesterday on some of the earnings not really cheering the Nasdaq up too much, and seeing selling coming in there. This looks prime if we see sort of a sell-off coming in the equity markets. This looks like a prime one for maybe some bigger moves to the downside. CAC and the DAX, just look at the DAX, similar pictures. both in this sort of third wave pushing up merrily. At the moment they look bullish. In this current situation, demand seems to be there, and it wouldn't be stepping in front. FTSE yesterday ran into its 34 today, well, just coming off that at the moment on its open, so just down a few points at the moment. Right, well, it doesn't look as bullish as the other markets. There's still a bit of lack of confidence, maybe, in the UK and overall, and it's showing in the fact that we haven't pushed higher than the prior highs there at the moment. So a bit of a soft look there, and again, if we start seeing things selling off, the FTSE might come off a bit better than the DAX or the CAC. On that note, I will leave you. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the morning. Bye for now.